Hello and welcome everyone and welcome to Sage's Tabletop Table Talks. I'm Sage, this is my tabletop, and I'm going to talk to you about tabletop role-playing games. So, in Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, the edition that all the fanboys threw a little hissy fit about, and even to this day, it seems like there's this idea that everything in 4th edition was bad, and there's nothing that could be salvaged from 4th edition, which is untrue, and it amazes me, some of the things that are kind of from 4th edition, but made worse in 5th edition, that fanboys are fine with because it's not 4th edition. But I'm going to take one of those really good ideas. Of all the classes in Dungeons & Dragons that aren't kind of the core classes, I cannot believe that Sorcerer and Warlock keep getting all this love, but one always seems to be an afterthought that just nobody ever seems to really pay attention to until afterwards, and that is the Artificer. I think the Artificer should be core. Get rid of the Warlock, get rid of the Sorcerer, give us the Artificer. And the other class I think that should replace those two is the Warlord. D&D 4th edition had this kind of cool class. Of all the things that 4th edition did, the Warlord's probably one of my favorite things that they gave us. The idea of the Warlord is it is meant to be this kind of martial melee. It's a support class similar to a druid, bard, or cleric, but it's supposed to be right in the meat of things. I know clerics and druids kind of can, but like this dude is supposed to be like there with fighters and paladins. He's supposed to be, kind of a tough guy, kind of a meaty dude. And as you can see, since she doesn't have a lot of room on this table, Jelly decided to make an appearance anyway. Jelly's a little a little meow warlord. Anyway, so hey, you need to not get into that. But anyway, the Warlord is kind of this class that was designed to be like a in-your-face support class. And I think 5th edition has something that could be the Warlord in the Fighter Battlemaster. And honestly, kind of kicking around the idea of a Warlord, one of the ideas I kind of did was, would it work as a fighter subclass? And the answer is yes, the Battlemaster. Not exactly, but the Battlemaster is kind of close, and it takes a lot. It mirrors a lot of the ideas I had with the Warlord, but I decided today, fuck it, I don't have a perfect 1 to 20 design for him. Oh, nor do I have 4 subclasses, I have 2. But I only gave it's an idea I've been kicking around, but I only actually gave myself a week to kind of buckle in and kind of see what I could do with this Warlord. And I kind of like where I've got so far. Just kind of starting ideas. The Warlord would have access to martial armor, or martial and simple weapons, all martial and simple weapons. And it would be proficient with light and medium armor and shields. I wouldn't give him heavy armor. I kind of juggled between a D8 and a D10 hit die. I know he's supposed to be like up there and in your face, but he's also kind of not a fighter. I think I've settled on a D10 hit die because that still means he can tank some hits. And I kind of gave it to anyway, that's kind of how it starts. Oh, and they'd have choice between 2 skill proficiencies, which would be diplomacy, bluff, athletics, swim, what else to give them? Perception, survival, and insight. And they would automatically start with intimidate as a class skill, because that's kind of the big thing with these guys. They're meant to be like these guys who are on the battlefield yelling orders, kind of barking commands, demoralizing opponents, as well as kind of boosting allies. And they would be charisma based. At level 1, the main idea to give them is, I call them warfare dice. So they would have a number of warfare dice equal to their proficiency bonus plus their charisma modifier. So if they had a level 1 plus 2 proficiency bonus, and with the 17 charisma, they would start with 5 of these battle dice, and they would start at a d6. They'd function similarly to Bardic Inspiration, but with some caveats. Like, you couldn't use them for skill rolls. They have to be used in combat. The Warlord decides when to use them, so he could be like, if your ally makes an attack roll and they roll okay but not great, he could be like, all right, I'm giving you a warfare dice for this. The warfare dice could be used to increase attack rolls. They could be used to increase saving throws. I'd also give them the ability to increase a wizard's spell DC. So if a wizard, warlock, sorcerer, cleric, druid, whatever, casts a spell on an opponent, he could give them a warfare dice. They could roll, and they start at a d6, and they build up as you level up. You know, d6, d8, d10, and eventually d12. But like a wizard could do this, and then he could be like, okay, I'm gonna roll warfare dice, roll a d6, and like, okay, the spell DC went from a 12, now 12 to a 16. Went from 12, might start anyway, and yeah, so he could use it to bolster spellcasting DCs to help make it harder for opponents to save against spells. He also used it to increase damage, so he can give a warfare dice to a fighter who hits. The rule is 1 warfare dice per character per turn. So he can give out as many as he wants on his turn, but only 1 character can benefit on a single cycle of actions. So he could use it to increase a fighter's attack roll, but not his damage. So, you know, okay, yeah, a fighter could get that, and a wizard could use this, or a warlock. A warlock uses Eldritch Blast. He could use this warfare dice to give him an extra d6 damage with this spell. You know, the other thing I let it do would be to increase a character's AC. If an opponent attacks, as kind of like a free reaction, he can grant a character a warfare dice to increase their AC. So monster attacks, he can give it like, okay, your AC is 15, here's a warfare dice, you roll 3, now it's an 18. Yeah, from 15 to 18. And so now maybe that character won't get hit from that attack. And it's just kind of like an idea to kind of give him a lot of battlefield control. And of course, they replenish at long rests, like all these kind of class abilities do. But yeah, that's they get level 1, and that's like their key. One of their major features, because that's kind of like the idea here, is that they're able to command the battlefield. I also gave them 2 types, which would be the Vanguard and the not General. Actually, I don't have a name for this one. But yeah, so the idea is that at level 1, you could say like, okay, do you want to be a Vanguard? If so, you now can equip heavy armor. Or you can be a War Master, and you gain an additional warfare dice. I also thought about maybe giving them cantrips, but I'm not real sure where I draw those cantrip from, wizard or warlock or cleric or druid spell lists. Because none of their spell lists really fit, but like I know it's like a big thing that like every character class in D&D has a magic option now. At level 2, I gave them the ability to give them, I call it improved flanking, but it kind of what it does is it gives them any ally within their threatened area, and the idea of a threatened zone is kind of something that is something I'm making kind of like an important idea for them, especially one of the subclasses I'm going to introduce. But one of the big things is like, okay, if they are in any zone that they threaten, so like all the eight spaces around them, any enemy in those who are also threatened by another character are considered flanking. They no longer have to be on parallel sides. If the Warlord is, threatening any of these spaces, a fighter could be right here beside him. So, like, they could be, you know, Warlord, fighter, enemy. Well, they're considered flanking now because the Warlord is very good at kind of demoralizing. And so normally the idea of flanking is, it's hard to fight from your front and behind, but the idea of the Warlord is because he's so good at coordinating fighting, it doesn't matter where they are as long as they're both on top of him. He is struggling to kind of maintain this fight. The enemy's struggling to maintain their fighting position. Very, very valuable ability if you have a rogue in the party, of course. But yeah, some of the other abilities I just kind of gave them, I want to give them, I haven't decided yet, but I'd like to give them the ability for players to roll hit dice in combat. So, like, they could, as a reaction, allow a player, maybe if a player reaches 0 hit points, they could, as a reaction, give them the ability to gain their hit die back. Like, I don't know, maybe a number of times to go to their proficiency modifier, or maybe the cost of a warfare dice, and, of course, they can regenerate this after a long rest, because that's, the big thing. Sorry. Darn, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, no. So like, give allies the ability to kind of push, because like it's one of those things where it was like everybody was like all like pissy and up in their pants in 4th edition about the Warlord. You can't shout a hand back on because the Warlord could like bark an order and allies heal, which of course you also can't cut hands off in D&D, and you also can't pray a hand back on. I don't know if you've ever tried that, you fucking idiots. But pray all you want, that hand's not gonna come back on. And it just kind of comes to this point where like people have this idea of like realism where it's unneeded. But now we have everybody has hit die, and it's literally the same thing as the Warlord's kind of like healing abilities, except now y'all are fine with it because Matt Mercer decided he really likes 5th edition. Y'all can't stop slobbering his knob because you guys are all brainless idiots. I don't mean that the entire D&D group. I'm just talking about the certain subset of clownishly awful tabletop RPG critics where they're like, have everything 4th edition did was wrong, everything 5th edition was right, or even worse, just not everything 5th edition did was right. The worst ones are the ones who think that 2nd edition is this perfect edition that can do no wrong. And as I always say, if you like 2nd edition, that's fine. It's okay to like the edition, but you guys to just constantly say that everything about these newer editions are bad, and that 2nd edition is the only good edition is annoying and stupid and toxic, and y'all need to shut the fuck up. Just on a quick side tangent, 2nd edition has a lot of good stuff in it. It's very simple. It's very kind of easy to put together. A lot of you guys, the classes are very easy to understand. It's got a lot of world flavor to it, specifically with the druids. And the druids are such a stupid thing in 2nd edition. Oh god, I cannot stop talking about the fucking 2nd edition druids. And why everybody who makes a retro clone feels the need to fucking bring back this insane, like, challenge where all druids have to keep taking each other's hats in order to, like, fucking get better. Why is that the thing that you guys feel the need to keep? Anyway, sorry. I digress. But yeah, no, the Warlord and 4th edition is a bad system. It's not a fun system. It had a lot of issues, but like the Warlord's really cool. And a lot of stuff that everybody cried about the Warlord, 5th edition does as well, and I don't hear nearly as much childish whinging about it as I did when 4th edition came out. One of the other abilities I wanted to give them was called a Battle Push, where they could hit a target, and they could opt to do either no damage or minimum damage, and push the target a number of feet equal to 5 times strength modifier, maybe charisma modifier. Weird to call it charisma modifier, but then at the same time, this is also a game with wizards and shit. So the idea of doing no damage is they could hit an ally, so they could push an ally across the battlefield, like maybe throw the rogue toward like a caster in the back, or throw the fighter toward a caster in the back line. Or across or across unfavorable terrain, like if the character uses stone spike to create like a barrier around himself, the Warlord could knock a party member over that barrier so that they could engage that character in a fight, so that the But the whole idea is that the Warlord is meant to shift the battlefield in favor of your party tactically. So doing things like that, or they could do minimum damage, still do ability modifier damage, so get a little damage in, or push an enemy that distance. And if they hit, they have to hit like versus their AC, but they could do things like push enemies into dangerous terrain, push enemies out of flanking positions, push enemies, just push enemies or push allies into more favorable conditions for the party, because that's their entire thing they do. That's kind of all I have for the basic ideas. The two subtypes I have are the General and the Warlord. Or no, the General and the Tyrant. The General's idea is that he's about kind of area effects. So, like, one of the first abilities the General gets is he is now considered threatening 5 additional feet outside, an additional space around him. He can't make attacks in this area, but he is still considered threatening for things like flanking or enemies doing withdrawals, things like that. I guess it wouldn't work with withdrawals, but it's because he has a lot of abilities that involve threatened area. Like one of his abilities I have is if him and an ally are both threatening a target, the warfare dice increases by an additional die size. If they're at a d12, it just straight adds a flat +2 to that number. They also gain an additional 2. That's not 2. Additional 2 warfare dice per. They get an additional 2 warfare dice to add to their pool. They can do things like any enemy within their threatened area, they can expend a warfare dice on, and if they're trying to cast a spell, use an item, or use like a supernatural ability, they can force their opponent to make a saving throw, which would be DC 10 plus charisma modifier, plus effectively the same way of a wizard's spell DC, or the General forces them to either miscast the spell or drop the item. They do expend a spell slot if they attempt this way and fail, cause the character to drop an item, or like a supernatural ability like a doppelganger's shapeshifting can disrupt that ability. And then one of the other things they can do is like allies within their quote unquote threatened zone can grant them like maybe a small bonus to AC, like a +1 bonus to AC to all allies, or a bonus to wisdom and charisma saving throws, things like that. And then the other one I have is the Tyrant, because all the classes have to have a Dark Edgelord version, I guess not really, but like there's the Paladin of Vengeance, there's the um, Domain of Trickery, the Assassin. So I kind of gave them one a Tyrant, and the Tyrant is based around um, being very aggressive. So if an ally within their threatened zone or they drop a foe, they can immediately heal either themselves or the ally that did the damage to the target. They can do things like if a player is dealing damage to an enemy, within they're both whether they're both flanking within their both threatened zone, give them extra dice, or at the top of their ability, basically once per combat, they will expend that after a short rest. If a foe, that's one of the things the general did is they got a warfare dice at a short rest at that's like their level, like I think 18 ability. The Tyrant can do things like he gains a warfare dice back every time him or an ally fell a foe, and he can do this twice, and that replenishes after a short rest. But yeah, they're all about just having them and their allies do extra damage and fell foes. I don't know what I'd do with the Magic Warlock. But yeah, that's given 7 days. I kind of like where I've gone. I kind of like where this kind of sets up. I might refine it some more and maybe post to one of those free wikias as I kind of develop and tweak it here and there. Do a little more. But yeah, I think the Warlord needs to come back. And for whatever reason, the current designers of 5th edition hate the Warlord because they're uncreative losers. And I just would like to just kind of see it. Hopefully Pinkertons is knocking at my door with a bunch of machine guns because I have said something less than positive about 5th edition or 2024, whatever. But anyway, I will see you guys next week. Bye.